Our next speaker is a Canadian lawyer based here in Alberta, known for his extensive work in constitutional, criminal, and regulatory law, with a particular focus on defending individual rights and challenging government overreach. He also is lead legal counsel, that is, for the National Citizens Inquiry. Please welcome lawyer Shawn Buckley.
You're very kind, and I was standing for you too. So, but the beauty about the National Citizens Inquiry is it really is all of us. It truly is just volunteers. It's people deciding to make a difference, and that's why it's just been an honor for all of us to participate. And I think also that's why it's been blessed. I mean, the quality of the witnesses, the examination by the lawyers. That commissioner's report is better than any government report I've ever seen. Aside from the fact there's no bias, it's just so well written. It's so well organized. And those commissioners were not paid. They sacrificed and sacrificed and sacrificed. So it's just an honor to be a part of that. Do you know, we're actually holding hearings this week in Edmonton on Thursday, Friday and Saturday. And, there's still tickets, so if any of you want to come, it's a historical experience. There's something about watching it online, but it's very different in person. And because we're holding hearings, and they're so soon, we've got all these new volunteers just bustling about. And last week, one was over at our house. Teresa was working with her, and I asked her, "Why are you volunteering?" And as soon as I ask the question, her body freezes. And she breaks facial contact. She looks down. And she's hesitating. Now, I know already why she's volunteering. She no longer has to tell me. What I don't know yet is who. Who was it that was important to her that was killed by the COVID shot? And she tells me. She says, "My husband died from the COVID shot. My best friend was killed by the COVID shot. A good friend's teenage son was killed by the COVID shot." So that's why she's volunteering. And that's why, and listen carefully, that is why it is most likely that our government system is not going to survive the COVID event. Because there's just been too much death. There's been too much bloodshed. It's literally like the blood is screaming from the earth against the government system that was weaponized against the people. And it was. The government system was weaponized against the people. The government's, all these institutions that were meant to protect us actually became weapons against us. And because there's been so much bloodshed, I think it's most likely that our political system is not going to survive. So we're in this situation where, I'm sure many of you, I bet you there's people that buy precious metals in here and thinking and I bet you there's people that stockpile food, literally. I don't know what to do economically. So I've diversified my portfolio. I'm into both canned goods and ammunition. So... because what are you supposed to do, right? But we're going to be, I'm making fun of that, but we are feeling angst economically, we are feeling angst geopolitically, and I think we need to understand that we cannot take that our government institutions are going to remain the way they are because too much blood has been shed. And so we're in this stage where it is really, really important that we unify, that we come together. Where literally we live that second commandment to love each other like ourselves. And we're divided. I mean, this room is fairly homogeneous, but we know there are people we're still afraid to talk to, and we have left and right and vaxxed and unvaxxed. And one thing that the National Citizens Inquiry taught us, those that participated in it, is, we're all, at the end of the day, we're all the same. Like, there truly is no division. This is just in our heads. When we started marching across the land at the beginning of March 2023, there was a lot of fear. Are our bank accounts going to get frozen? Witnesses were dropping out left, right, and center, worried about losing their jobs. Lawyers were dropping out right, left, and center. No one wanted to go in front of the camera and be identified as part of this. They were afraid of social consequences. They were afraid of economic consequences. I mean, this was the first winter in 2 years where we hadn't been locked down. And we have the truckers to thank for that, because if they hadn't sacrificed, I am sure the truckers have no idea. They have no idea how much difference they've made. Because, I know for me, I was cowering in my basement in fear, and then I see them, and it's kind of like, it's almost like you can't believe it. Like, that's why the euphoria was so great. We just couldn't believe it. And we're so beaten down. And they got me, okay, I can't sit still anymore. And I know they've done that to person after person after person, and they will never know, but they changed history. But here we have this break. We've got this, all of a sudden, after 2 winters of lockdowns, we're not locked down. And so the NCI would jump in there, let's start holding hearings. Let's start getting people to understand that there's more to this, so that we can't get locked down again. Now, we weren't anticipating that this was going to be a healing event. How do you plan for that? How do you know that God is all of a sudden going to heal everyone who's participating and take away the hatred? And I mean, remember, there was hatred. The vaxxed hated hated the unvaxxed. And the unvaxxed, they hated the vaxxed. I mean, let's be honest. We hated each other. But it broke down actually having to listen to people's stories. You're vaccinated and you're watching Sheila Lewis's testimony. She testified in Ottawa. She was an Alberta lady who needed an organ transplant to survive. She couldn't tell us the organ. There was a court order preventing her from sharing with us the organ. And she's on the stand. And you got to watch it. No one here, you cannot watch it and not weep. It's impossible. And she's on the stand weeping. And she's saying things like, I just want to live. I want to watch my grandbabies grow up, as she's weeping. And the vaxxed participated in watching her. And their hearts are broken. And they're in love with her. And the hatred's gone. It's gone. And the unvaxxed, we had the exact same experience. We had to watch witnesses like Brancy. Teresa, what was her? Christine Brancy. She testified in Toronto. A nurse for 28 years. She takes the vaccine. She is crippled. She is just suffering horribly. She's weeping on the stand, and you're there with her. You're weeping with her. You love her. You're actually lost that here these vax that we hated, they're being treated like lepers because the medical system, our institutions, which are still weaponized against us, can't admit that we have vaccine injuries. You want to hate these people? They're just being terrorized. It's absolutely awful. And then she shares with us her 23-year-old son had a pulmonary embolism. Her husband has cancer. She testified in Toronto on April 1st, 2023. I called her back as a witness on March 31st, 2024 in the Regina hearings because I wanted an update on her family. Her son had been rushed to the hospital another time with what appears to be a stroke. And her husband, Bart, is dead. more blood. More blood to scream from the earth at our institutions. Now, we've got to change. We've got to understand that we're at a crossroads politically. I mean, we have a Westminster political system where actually we are trained not to read the Constitution. Probably everyone in this room went through elementary school, public elementary school, public high school, many college and university, and I bet you myself and Jeffrey Rath are the only two people in this room that have read the Constitution. Why is that? Why are Canadian kids not taught about our Constitution? Why has not a single person in this room read it except a couple of lawyers? Because you'd be shocked when you read it, that the king is our executive power. And he exercises that power through representatives in parliament and our legislatures who swear allegiance to the king. And we pretend we're in a democracy, that's the public messaging. But this system is designed to be non-responsive to us. Power doesn't rest in the citizen. I mean, even the idea, what, the Alberta government has to grant us rights in a Bill of Rights? What? It's broken. It's not going to survive because it can't anymore. We see that it can be weaponized against us. And we absolutely have to do this differently going forward. So we're at a fork in the road, literally. And listen carefully, because one of these forks doesn't lead to a good place. And one of these forks is where we just continue doing what we're doing, where our government is still a weapon against us. They're not telling us the truth. They're not telling us what you're hearing here. We're still jabbing kids in Alberta. It's on the childhood vaccine schedule. So our public health officials doing their job will be bugging parents and encouraging all of this vaccination. And unlikely that's happening in every single province. And the media isn't being responsive, and the police aren't investigating, and all our institutions are against us. And if we continue down this path, well, what's going to happen when the dam breaks and that movable middle that right now don't know that their loved ones have died and are injured because of a vaccine that we should have never used, that this is in most charitably just gross negligence, but you know, they're going to conclude it's malice. What are they going to do when they come to this realization, wait a second, the government and our institutions were used as a weapon to kill people important to me, to injure my family and friends and maybe me? Where do they get their justice when they're still weapons? Where do they get their they want vengeance, not let alone justice. So how do we do you see the problem? Where do we go once the majority says enough's enough and all our institutions are still weapons against us and we can't use them for justice? Do you see the problem here? Like, I don't want to go through a French Revolution that ends up with a dictator. I don't want us deciding how we're going to have a different political system that's more responsive when we're in anger and seeking vengeance and divided and our institutions are against us. That doesn't lead anywhere I want to go. See, and the other path is for every provincial government to just tell the truth. Just come clean. Tell the truth. And stop vaccinating kids. And start telling the police, you start investigating. And set up a separate police body to investigate the police for their COVID crimes. And then set up a transitional government to investigate you. And then, when the movable middle, when most of us come to this conclusion, wait a second, we need justice, we've got some institutions to hang on to. Not perfectly, but wait a second, we are pursuing justice. The police are investigating. The government has set up a transitional government. Our institutions are being brought back. We can carry ourselves through that storm and have measured justice with rule of law. And then when we're through that peacefully, then we can decide how we're going to reorganize ourselves politically so our government can't be a weapon against us again. Do you see how different these outcomes are going to be? And what is it? Like, is it, it's likely our government is afraid of liability. But, you know, so every premier in the province and every cabinet member in the province, I'm going to ask you, or the country, let's go country-wise. I have a question for you. And that is, do you honestly believe that you're not going to jail? Right? And let's put this into context. So, you know, and I'm speaking to the premiers and I'm speaking to the cabinet members. Let's reason this out. I'm not talking about what happened in COVID. I'm talking about the kids jabbed today. The kids jabbed in March 2025. Because unless I'm from another planet, then we all know, or ought to know, that children are not at danger of dying from COVID-19. And unless I'm from another planet, then we know, or ought to know, that this vaccine is killing some of our kids and harming a lot more. And you know, I've practiced law for almost 30 years, done a lot of criminal law, and I can tell you, in my personal opinion, what we're doing today, when we harm a child, it's criminal negligence causing bodily harm. And when we kill a child, it is criminal negligence causing death. And we've crossed that Rubicon, because we know so much. We've crossed that Rubicon where, in my opinion, it's culpable homicide. Now, you're not going to be able to escape that. You can go down the route where we deny this, and then we're in a societal crisis because we need justice, and we have no mechanism to peacefully do this. Or you can do us a service so that our children and our grandchildren live in a better Canada. Now, I'm not going to have grandchildren because my kids, I'm pretty sure we're all vaxxed. So my bloodline ends, and a lot of ours, it's going to end. But we need justice in a measured and peaceful way, don't we? We just do. Now, so that's my question for the politicians. My questions for you is who are you going to be? And I got to go back to Arthur Pulaski's dream, and I know some of you have heard it, but some of you haven't. And even if you had, it's good to hear it again. And so I had Arthur tell me his dream, and this is a pre-COVID dream, and he sees this fence that literally goes into the horizon as far as the eye can see, and everyone in the world is sitting on the fence. Like, isn't this wonderful symbolism? Everyone's sitting on the fence. And then God's hands come down and grab the fence, and God starts shaking the fence. And this fence is whipping back and forth, and everyone's hanging on to the top of the fence because they actually don't want to pick a side. They kind of like having a little bit of both worlds. But God doesn't stop, and then we all realize we're going to fall off the fence, and now we have to decide which side of the fence are we falling on. Are we going to fall on God's side of the fence, where actually we have to love each other like we love ourselves? And love isn't a feeling, it's an action word. So if we're talking about saving kids, are you going to fall on the side of the fence where you're actually spending most of your spare time and most of your resources trying to save kids? Or are you going to fall on the side of the fence where you don't have to love, love's just a feeling, where you go to rallies like this and go watch the NCI, but you're really not doing anything. You're not sacrificing at all to save kids. Like, you're going to fall on that side of the fence? Well, you got to decide. I think we're actually here right now. I think the world is being shaken. Canada is being shaken right now. And so my question for you is which side of the fence are you going to choose to fall on? Because you can't stay on there much longer. And I just want to share, I was walking around in the back, and another experience I had came to mind. And I had shared it at the NCI in one of the openings. But yeah, I don't know, I'm 8 or 9, and my mom drags me to the public library, and we watched this World War II film that was taken by some soldier in the German army. And it's black and white, and it's all scratchy, there's no sound. And apparently it's in Eastern Europe, and some partisans had been killing German soldiers. So for retribution, they literally were lining up civilians against a wall to shoot them in a firing squad. And so you see all these civilians lined up against a wall, and you see this line of German soldiers. And then there must be an order to raise rifles, because all these rifles raise, except for one. And then the rifles all go down, so there must have been an order for the rifle to go down, and the officer goes, and he's having a conversation with that soldier that didn't raise his rifle. And then that soldier lays his rifle down and walks to the wall with the civilians. And then the rifles are raised, and everyone's shot, including that soldier. And now you're all here thinking, oh, wow, what a wonderful example of somebody that was willing to stand up. And I was actually, the real point of the story is that the rest of the soldiers raised their rifles. The rest of the soldiers followed orders. Dr. Gary Davidson was up here talking about how we all participated in this. We raised our rifles, and we all did to a degree too. And so when I ask you to choose who you're going to be, understand this is a wonderful time. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's happening. The shaking's happening. We're going to win. But we're only going to win, and Dr. Davidson raised it, if we start participating. So before I get dragged off the stage, thanks for letting me share.
I would never do such a thing.